and allow him to not be able to respond to our fusion summon. This gateway and get ourselves another super soldier. We are one ritual spell away from back in the game. We'll activate Magical Meltdown, get A-Lister, get Invocation, and go into a copy of Mechba. We found a terraforming, so we'll go ahead and activate Magical Meltdown.
5 years.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. I'm fresh off my playoffs win, and sorry about this one. So here's the list. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I'm starting to hear the caretaker in my head. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends. Glad I get to do the speech from the winner's circle this time. Felt a little disingenuous to be talking about this lovingly crafted RPG available for mobile and PC after getting stomped for the 9th week in a row. As always, if you're looking for the link, mine's in the description. Raid has recently released their most ambitious boss yet, the Hydra. Like the Dragon Rulers, each head has different mechanics, but all of them are bannably strong. Danny! For instance, the head of Suffering can share the damage it deals with your champions, just like how Gavin can share the suffering he inflicts with you viewers. The head of Torment uses True Fear to cause you to skip your own turn, like how Gavin makes me want to skip his matches every week. And the head of Wrath becomes an unkillable monster when provoked, like how I act after dealing with Gavin. I continue to be an absolute king in the arena. I've been playing it relentlessly and I'm unironically climbing pretty far. I owe my continued success to both my team and the auto-moderation avoiding PLSS gang, a clan I have put together. Raid's also giving away a super limited edition champion to every player in the game. Esports legend Simple. Between now and January 28th, Simple is available for free, but you have to log in for 7 days between now and the 28th. Just hit the link in the description or scan the QR code right here. New players will get an epic hero Vergus, 200,000 silver, an experience boost, an energy refill, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get in game. You'll find your rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. Now let's interrogate why we're playing Invoked for the 12th time on this channel. Invoked is so many different things to so many different people. A thorn in Farfa's side, an easy joke for unfunny Yu-Gi-Oh! Reply guys, a Tumblr sexy man for the down baddest people on Twitter. But to me, he's a constraint. You see, this unholy twink has been competing with the normal summon of every rogue deck since 2017, from Generator to Arrow Mage. If you're playing something without a normal, you have to engage in a pre-deck building calculation. Is what I'm doing better than normal summon Alistair? For many decks, Eldritch to Mech Knight, the answer is a resounding no. And while this led to literally hundreds of tops for this bottom, he was never the flagship monster of his own Tier 1 meta strategy. Until now. D.I.D.S is an amalgamation of 3 or 4 extremely powerful self-contained control archetypes that all have incidental synergy with each other. And shock of shocks, the glue that holds it all together is the king of glue himself, Alistair the Invoker. His associated field spell, Magical Meltdown, ensures your cards that perform a fusion summon resolve. Cycling through Almirage gives you the ability to trigger Dogmaticas without going into Nadir's Servant, and beginning your high-impact plays with a Macabre on field insulates you against the turn-ending hand traps that are becoming more and more popular. The acronym D.I.D.S stands for Dogmatica, an archetype of Catholics that bin extra deck monsters for the glory of the Pope, Invoked, a blasphemous little gremlin, Destiny Hero, Reddit's new favorite punching bag, and finally Shadow, an archetype represented by a grand total of 1 main deck card that can effortlessly make a special summon floodgate. What's made this archetype so relevant in today's hustle and bustle metagame is how effective single cards that win you the game have become. Macabre, Winda, DPE, these all have the capacity to ruin your opponent's game plan on their own, so whichever your opponent fails to negate is often enough to drag your corpse across the finish line. It's arguable, but I'd say alongside Lyralisk Tri-Brigade and Tenyi Sword Soul, this deck fits snugly into the top tier of metagame contention. So with that, let's get into the card by card. Surprising no one, the first card on our list is Alistair the Invoker. If you don't know what this card does yet, where have you been for the last half-decade? Have you heard about COVID? Did you know Donald Trump was president? Yeah, the reality star. Anyway, on normal summon, this card adds an invocation from your deck to your hand, and of course could be sent from your hand to the graveyard to increase the attack of a fusion monster you control by 1,000. After that are the Dogmaticas. Ecclesia begins the brigade. She is exceptionally powerful, 2 effects. The first searches a Dogmatica on normal or special and locks you from the extra, but the first comes up quite frequently. You can special her from the hand if there is a monster that was summoned from the extra deck on the field. This does not lock you, which means in some board states you'll recognize the dog line is not as powerful as DPE would be, and you'll use her to go into Verte Anaconda. Next is Fleur-de-Lis, a searchable piece of negation, followed by Maximus. Maximus is a strange card. It allows you to set up the should all play without minusing yourself. Very powerful, but because this deck is now everywhere, people can plan for it. They can put N-Tisses in their extra deck, maybe a Cyber Dragon Nova and a Makaba of their own. Even without extra cards in the extra deck, the two other tier 1 strategies have things they can send on this. Tri-Brigade can send Farajit in order to cycle their hand and get something just a little bit better. And of course, Sword Soul can send any random worm to the graveyard so that later they have material for something like a Taya. It's not as strong as it would be in a world where no one else was playing anything relevant in the extra. After that, the hand traps, 3 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, triple Nibiru. I just like this because it's light and I love turn enders, and 2 Effect Veiler. If I had a 41st card, it would probably be the third one. Finally, we've got a copy of Celestial and a copy of Dasher. I am sure that there's something this deck could be playing that's not Dasher. It just does so little in here. After that is 3 Nadir's Servant. This card is absolutely phenomenal. Of course, allows you to send a card from your extra deck to the graveyard. Sometimes it's removal, sometimes it's extension, then add a Dogmatica from your deck to your hand, but it doesn't allow you to summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, so usually you're using it to end your plays. We've got 3 triple tactical talents. I like to use the Forceful Sentry mode of this more than I probably should, just because if you know what your opponent is playing a control deck is so much easier. And finally, Pot of Prosperity, unsurprising as well. In terms of really, really powerful fusion enablers, we've got triple Fusion Destiny, which of course is in here for DPE, triple Magical Meltdown, which is one of the most broken cards ever printed. I think if they hit this deck, this has got to be the card that has to maybe go to 1. 2 Invocation, 1 Terraforming, and 1 Called by the Grave. For traps are on triple Infib, 1 Punishment, and 1 Schism. In the extra, we're on double Mechaba. Mostly the second one is in here so that I can banish it for Pot of Prosperity. El Shaddai Construct, this is for an extended line with App Cologne where you don't minus yourself, sending the Schism. DPE, of course, Titanclad, Aegades, Purgatrio, double App Cologne, 1 Winda, N-Tis, and Kaliga. Extra deck space is very tight, but Kaliga is probably the most cuttable of the fusion monsters in here. We've got a Verte and a Secure Gardener and an Almirage as well. You might be thinking to yourself, well, why aren't you just playing Artemis over Secure Gardener? Well, the important thing is getting that Almirage in the graveyard not only sets up your Maximus, allows it to be special summoned basically from that position, but it also sets up a Purgatrio later in the game, and threatening lethal in this deck is very hard to do otherwise. So, with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against, I don't really know what to call this, Reptile Good Stuff? It's Alien and Reptilian and Ogadodic. Basically every good archetype that can make use of Snake Rain, and they have drawn Snake Rain, so we'll see how this goes. They're going to begin with a copy of Null, then they'll tribute the Null for a curse. They'll trigger the effect of the curse. We do not want that to resolve, so we will Effect Veiler here. They're in a weird pickle here. They're going to activate Reptilian Spawn and then follow it up with an Aelith in graveyard, but Aelith allows me to add a card from my graveyard back to my hand, so I'm going to take Veiler, which is not once per turn. They're going to go into a copy of Z-Lore, but of course we're going to negate that with the Effect Veiler as well. So they're going to normal summon a copy of Alien Kid, set 1 card, and pass back to us. Now, I don't read Zaylor absolutely correctly, so please do not hold me to account for my next play. We're going to begin with a Pot of Prosperity for 6, which you should never do in this deck. You need the flexibility of your extra, and you're going to find what you want in the top 3 anyway, because the deck is so consistent. We go for the FD, and oh, I see, it's Baguska. All right, well, we have Nadir. We're going to fire off the Nadir. That's going to force out the Infinite Impermanence, because on the new chain, we're going to activate N-Tis, and now our monsters are no longer locked. We're going to go for Ecclesia, set 1, and pass, and I think we are going to win from this position. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Curse, and Curse hilariously allows me to summon back the Dasher, which I do. After that, they're going to special summon the Nihil. We will Effect Veiler, and we should be good to go. They're going to go into the Alien Link after this, which is pretty interesting. Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame. We're going to activate our DPE here. They're going to chain the effect of M-Frame. We're going to pop the card that is not M-Frame, and I'm pretty happy because now they can't get rid of the M-Frame until I realize my summoned Dasher has more attack points than it. This allows them to Soul Charge, but thankfully I have removal in the form of punishment. We're going to go ahead and get a Schism, ditch this Invocation, which we have no way of ever using anyway, and draw for turn. I don't think we have lethal here. We can't special summon this Fleur-de-Lis because unfortunately this DPE was summoned from the graveyard, not the extra deck, but we can get them down to 200 life points, and we do have set a copy of Schism, so it's not like there's a lot they can do. They're going to begin with a copy of Null. Afterwards, they're going to activate the effect of Null, and as they go to summon, we're going to flip up the Schism, go into a Winda, and they will send their monster in. Our second match is up against Sword Soul Virtual World. Where are these players coming from? Usually I have to make do with Dark Magician pilots. Who knew there were cool players on Edo Pro? Unfortunately, the Edo Pro Shuffler is still not treating me particularly well. We've got 2 I guess, soft garnets in our opener. This Alistair is kind of all or nothing. We're going to normal summon the Alistair, and here comes the nothing. Infinite Impermanence coming down. Okay, time for Pot of Prosperity. We probably have to go for 6 here because we're so far behind, and you know what I'm looking for, baby. You know what I need. You know what I want to see off the top of this deck. Come on, give me the Invocation. There it is. We're going to go for a copy of Valmirage and follow it up with Secure Garden, firing off the Invocation in order to go into a Makaba, adding this copy of Alistair back to our hand, and passing 1 negation. I hope it's enough. Our opponent draws for turn. Oh, wow, that's a fantastic one. Emergence comes down, and Taya to the grip. They're going to begin with a copy of Yan Yan, then activate the effect of ZC in hand. They'll activate the Qinglong in graveyard in order to get themselves a copy of Lao Lao. They'll go for the Lulu, and that's what I'm saving the Makaba for. Okay, that one's banished. They'll go for the Lao Lao afterwards, and then make themselves a copy of... Whoa, Final Sigma, that can't be right. They're going to go for Breaksword here. We will Effect Veiler. Final Sigma is kind of a really bad card here because it can be destroyed by battle and can't get over an Alistair boosted Makaba. We're going to get another Invocation, but oh my god, I banished all the other invoked monsters for the Pot of Prosperity. Instead, we're just going to have to be satisfied with Verite Anaconda after getting the Sigma off the board, and now I suppose we'll just go for the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Not a very flashy play, but probably a winning one. Our opponent's going to draw for turn. It's a Lily. They're going to start by normal summoning this copy of Taya. They're going to banish this copy of Emergence, which increases the level of the token so they can make a Shen Shen, but unfortunately for them, I'm going to lock them into Synchros and keep them on the token. We're going to activate the DPE and draw for turn. Wow, that's a really good one. We're going to activate Celestial to draw a couple of cards, then fire off the Terraforming in order to get a copy of Meltdown. We'll activate Meltdown to get a copy of Alistair, and really the only thing this is being used for is a normal summonable monster. We'll special summon this Maximus and then activate the effect, setting up for the should all play next turn. I don't think we have lethal, but we can lock them out of the game with the Schism, which we just added to hand. We'll go to the battle phase and do a ton of damage, and then in main phase 2, we will set 2 and dare our opponent to find the out to our board. They are pretty few and far between. They draw for turn, and Ash is not it. Goes into the DPE, and the game ends. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Sword Soul, and we have both opened Crazy. Unfortunately, our opponent opened Crazy and won the die roll. They're going to begin with a copy of Pot of Desires and find off the top an Ecclesia, of course. Okay, they're going to go for the Long One and then make themselves a copy of Baron, and now that they are insulated for the remainder of their turn, it's Ecclesia time. They're going to use Ecclesia to tag into a Moye. That Moye is going to summon a token, and of course, the Moye is going to convert into a Chi Xiao. That Chi Xiao is going to be Chainlink 1, Moye Chainlink 2. They'll draw a card and add from deck to hand an Emergence. That's strange, I think, until I see the Protoss. I don't think we can beat Protoss for Dark. We'll Infip here. All it's going to do is burn the Baron, and then they will go ahead and pass back to us. Now, there's not a lot we can do, but there is some stuff. We're going to begin with a Magical Meltdown in order to get an Alistair. We're going to fire off this Nadir, and dang, the Ash, that complicates things. We go for the Alistair here, they negate with Chi Xiao, and that's kind of all she wrote. There's maybe a line in which we special summon this copy of Fleur-de-Lis, go to battle to prompt the Chi Xiao early, and then once we've traded for that, we can normal the Alistair and go for a Makaba, but all that trades for is the on-field Baron effect of popping it the next turn, and I still have to contend with Protoss. So let's just go next. So it's time for game 2, and this is a weird hand. We're going to begin with a Fusion Destiny and end with a Fusion Destiny. Good luck to our opponent. They're going to draw for turn and fire off one of these 2 Infinite Impermanences, targeting our DPE. We're going to chain the DPE, so at least we get it next turn, or at least we would if that Protoss wasn't coming down. We'll activate the effect. They'll go for a Shunna. They're going to turn the Ashunna into a Monk. They're going to activate a Shunna. We'll Ash Blossom here, because I don't think we can contend with the entire line. They can normal summon a Taya and go into Shaman. They'll trigger Shaman. We'll Effect Veiler that, and we should be out of the woods but for the Protoss. They go to battle phase, get in for a fair amount of damage, but unfortunately for them, Protoss on Dark doesn't do very much against this hand in particular. They're going to set 1 card and pass, and thank the Lord we draw Nadir off the top. We're going to fire the Nadir in order to send an Entis and contest that back row, and it turns out that was a really good idea because it would have lost us the game. We'll go for Ecclesia in order to get a copy of Fleur-de-Lis, and then we'll activate Maximus Dragma, activate the Dragma effect in order to send a bunch of cards to the graveyard. We can't do lethal this turn, but we can do the thing where we set up a Winda and then our opponent can't possibly win. We'll walk over the entire board thanks to Fleur-de-Lis effect. Don't ever tell me to cut this card. And then we will set a copy of Schism, activate Celestial to draw a couple of cards. Oh my god, and get a Meltdown as well. We'll normal summon the Alistair, and maybe we should have done this earlier. We'll pass back to our opponent. They draw for turn, and oh, that's a really, really good one, but I don't think it's good enough. We're going to chain Schism to the Omega activation. Thank the Lord for main phase, and our opponent's going to concede. So it's time for that all-important Game 3, and while our opponent is going first, this is a very winnable hand. They're going to begin with a copy of Moye. They're going to use the effect of Moye in order to get a token to their side of the field and make themselves a Chi Xiao, Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. They're going to draw a card off the top of their deck, and then, oh my god, a Desires. Well, thankfully we have the Ash Blossom for that. They're going to have to set 2 and pass after this is negated. We could do this, maybe? Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Okay, we're going to go for the prosperity, and this is my big mistake. I should have prospeed for 3, but I prospeed for 6, including Verte, which comes back to bite me. We're going to begin with a copy of Magical Meltdown. We'll go for the Magical Meltdown for the Alistair. We'll activate the Alistair effect. They're going to activate the Chi Shao, and... dang it. If I had just kept the Verte, I could have used triple tack in order to take their monster and go for Verte from this position. As is, I have to Forceful Sentry after they Ash the Fusion Destiny. We'll end with the Disciple of the Nadir and set up the Winda line, but unfortunately... that blackout in the back row is going to be devastating for us. They infip our Ecclesia, we'll set 1 and pass back to them. They draw for turn, we flip Schism... but they have enough. They're going to go for Emergence, which they spike off the top, before going for Moye, getting another token to their side of the field, and making themselves a copy of Chi Shao. From here, they can draw a couple of cards, and they are all the way back to 3. They'll activate the effect of the Long Wand in hand in order to summon it and a token, and I have to activate Schism here because I'm not going to get another opportunity. We can protect our monster with Almirage, but it's probably too late. They're going to black out, then fire off the Ashana for a Vishada, and that is the last type they need. They can go for a Protoss. They'll get in for a fair amount of damage, but more importantly, they will be able to activate the Protoss to call Dark and cut us off of a DPE, getting us back into the game or anything similar. We draw for turn and... oh, there he is. The boy negated. Well. So we're back with the deck, and geez, I don't think I've actually ever been outplayed that badly before. Often my opponents are on a better deck than me, but this time it just looked like they knew what they were doing and I didn't. Anyway, Protoss aside, let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, it's got a lot of auto wins. Right now, there's a prerequisite to playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is your deck contains a card your opponent cannot beat, and boy oh boy, is Winda that. 2, it can play through pretty much anything with the right combination of 1-card setups and protection via Meltdown. There's nothing more debilitating than negating the Alistair, only for your opponent to Windmill Slam Fusion Destiny. And 3, there are some neat interactions that are unique to this deck. The Makaba Banish is super relevant, the Schism Send comes up constantly, and the Ariel from the board is hilarious. And the cons. 1, shockingly, the deck bricks. You can very easily find yourself with a grip of hand traps and invocation. 2, sequencing is extremely important. The locks in this deck are crazy, and good players can read your hand based on how you order. And 3, you have to actually know what you're banishing with Prosperity. Do not make my mistakes. All in all, deck's nuts. Congratulations, you lovable twink. You did it.